Chapter 10. Believe in truth. To abandon facts is to abandon freedom. If nothing is true, then no one can criticize power, because there is no basis upon which to do so. If nothing is true, then all is speculative. The biggest wallets pay for the most blinding lights. You submit to tyranny when you renounce the difference between what you want to hear and what is actually the case. This renunciation of reality can feel natural and pleasant, but the result is your demise as an individual, and thus the collapse of any political system that depends upon individualism. As observers of totalitarians, such as Victor Klemper noticed, truth dies in four modes. The first mode is open hostility to verifiable reality, which takes the form of presenting inventions and lies as if they were facts. The President does this at a high rate and at a fast pace. One attempt during the 2016 campaign to track his utterances found that 78% of factual claims were false. This proportion is so high that it makes correct assertions seem like unintended oversights on the path towards total fiction. The second mode is shamanistic incarnations. As Klepter notes, the fascistic style depends upon endless repetition, designed to make fiction plausible and the criminal desirable. Systematic use of nicknames such as Lying Ted and quote-unquote Crooked Hillary displays certain characteristic traits that might more appropriately have been affixed to the former President of the United States. Yet, through blunt repetition over online platforms such as Twitter, the former president managed the transformation of individuals into stereotypes that people then spoke aloud. At rallies, the repeated chants of "build the wall" and "lock her up" did not describe anything that the president had specific plans to do, but their very grandiosity established a connection between him and his audience. The next mode is magical thinking, or the open embrace of contradiction. The former president's campaign involved the promises of cutting taxes for everyone, eliminating the national debt, and increasing spending on both social policy and defense. These promises mutually contradictory. It is as if a farmer said he was going to take an egg from the henhouse, boil it whole, serve it up for his wife, and also poach it and serve it to his children, then returning it to the hen unbroken, then watching it as a chick is hatched. Accepting untruth of this kind requires a blatant abandonment of reason. Kepler's description of losing friends in Germany in 1933 over the issue of magical thinking rings eerily true today. One of his former students implored him to abandon yourself to your feelings, and you must always focus on the Führer's greatness rather than on the discomfort you are feeling at present. 20 years later, after all the atrocities, and at the end of the war that Germany had clearly lost, an amputated soldier told Klepter that Hitler had never lied yet. I believe in Hitler. The final mode is misplaced faith. It involves the sort of self-defying claims that the former president made when he said, "I alone can solve it," or "I am your voice." When faith descends from heaven to earth in this way, no room remains for the small truths of our individual discernment and experience. What terrified Klepter was the way that this transition seemed permanent. Once truth had become auricular rather than factual, evidence was irrelevant. At the end of the war, as a worker told Klepter that understanding is useless, you have to have faith. I believe in the Führer. Eugene Ionesco, the great Romanian playwright, watched one friend after another slip away into language of fascism in the 1930s. The experience became the basis of his 1959 absurdist play, Rhinoceros, in which those who fall prey to propaganda are transformed into great horned beasts. Of his own personal experience, Ionesco wrote, "University professors, students, intellectuals were turning Nazis, becoming Iron Guards one after another. At the beginning, certainly they were not Nazis. After 15 of us would get together to talk and try to find arguments opposing theirs. It was not easy. From time to time, one of our friends said, 'I don't agree with them, to be sure, but on certain points, nevertheless, I must admit, for example, the Jews, etc.' And this was a symptom. 3 weeks later, this person had become a Nazi. He was caught in the mechanism. He accepted everything. He became a rhinoceros. Towards the end, only 3 or 4 of us were still resisting. Inosoko's aim was to help us see just how bizarre propaganda actually is, but how normal it seems to those who yield to it. By using the absurd image of a rhinoceros, Inosoko was trying to shock people into noticing the strangeness of what actually is happening. The rhinoceri are roaming through our neurological savannah. We now find ourselves very much concerned with something we call post-truth, and we tend to think that it is scorn of everyday facts and its construction of an alternative realities is something new or postmodern. Yet there is little here that George Orwell did not capture 7 decades ago in his notion of doublethink. It is philosophically post-truth. In its philosophy, post-truth restores precisely the fascist attitude to truth, and that is why nothing in our own world would startle Klepto or Inosoko. Fascists despise the small truths of daily experience, love slogans that resonate like a new religion, and preferred creative myths to history or journalism. They used new media, which at the time was radio, to create a drumbeat of propaganda that aroused feelings before people had time to assert facts. And now, as then, many people confused faith in a huge flawed leader with the truth about the world we are all sharing. Post-truth is pre-fascism.